After watching the whole thing, I have no idea.
Well, if you're too worried about what's going on, that may not be the show for you. Because I'll tell you what, I was never 100% sure until the final day when David told me what we were all kind of going for. And that was the unique part of that process with David Milch specifically and the way that he approached this show. A lot of us didn't know what we were doing until we got there on the day. I got call sheets at home that say, the whole cast is called in. It doesn't tell you any scenes, doesn't tell you any dialogue that we need to know. It's just he just wants us all there. Once we get there, David will then say, this is a scene with you, and yeah, all right. And he says the F word a lot. But he is the greatest writer in television. Hands down, you won't hear me qualify that in any way. David Milch is the top of the writing mountain. And I always wanted to work for him. You know, about 15 years ago, David wanted to hire me on a show that he was doing, and I was under a whole deal some other place, and they said, you can't go be on another TV show, and they threatened to sue me and Dave and Steve Botchum and some other people. I said, no, we don't need to do that. I didn't hear from David for almost 15 years. And I thought, no, I blew it there with Milch, and I had a great shot to work with this guy, and then the powers that be and the legal guys, they messed it up. Well, one day my phone rings, and it's Friday, and Luke, it's Dave Milch. Oh, wow, great. Dave Milch, we want to have breakfast. Yeah, cool. Meet me tomorrow, we'll have breakfast on Saturday. I go, I sit down, I meet David, and we are having that breakfast. And that's what we're having that breakfast. He reaches in his back pocket and he pulls out some script pages, and they're kind of mangled, and then he spreads them out on the thing, and he says, now I got this guy, I want you to play him. I'm thinking about this show, and man, it's not going to be like anything else. And David, he's the greatest teller of his own stories. I'm like, dude, you don't even need the rest of this. I would watch you tell these stories. And it's true. You know, they have a big writers' conference in Austin every year where they have screenwriters and TV writers, and they all gather and they talk about their work. They probably give each other pats on the back and awards and all that stuff too. But I know that they have a day at the end of the week, and they have people, like I'm doing now, they'll have different writers who are of import or of interest to people. They'll have them sit and talk. Guess who closes the show every year? Yeah, David Milch. And I'm talking the highest paid movie writers. They all want David to be the one to close the show, because when he gets up here and that brother starts talking, you will all be interested in it. Even if you don't understand it all, he will be interested. He's the smartest guy in the room, and I don't care what room you put him in. Dave just has it like that. And it was a pleasure for me to work in the service of words that are that good, and somebody who he owes no loyalty to anything but his creative vision. He doesn't care what someone else has to say about it, or if they're willing to, he doesn't care. When you start to say to David, no, you can't do that because it'll cost, he doesn't care. He's not worried about that. And that's what allows him to get to the purity of the kind of stories that he tells. And a lot of people don't like the language that David will, give these characters to talk with. But when you look at the stories he tells and the characters he builds, and, look at Ian McShane, man, 2 years in a row with that Golden Globe. Because, David just, when you get the words that good and he surrounds you with actors like that, it's hard to go wrong. David's the only one I've ever worked for told me I was a great actor. They never said anything to you. They didn't say, oh, it was good, it was okay, it was whatever. David came up to me one day, and I was having trouble getting to where I needed to get in that scene, and he just came up and said, listen, asshole, here's the deal. You're a great actor. I need you to be great right now. That's all it took. I was like, wow, you think I'm okay? Because somebody who actually knows what they're talking about said I was a good actor. So I thought, great, cool, I'll kill and die for this guy. And I would. There's just nothing I wouldn't do for him. He inspires that kind of loyalty through his writing, his process, and the way that he treats people. David has a real sense that everyone's a human being. All the crew, they all have something valuable to offer, and he really made me think about a lot of those things when I worked with him. And I didn't need to know per se what the whole show was going to be about. He was so good at telling me what my scene was about and what I need to do in this particular scene. And I know if I put all the scenes together, the show will eventually work or not, but I just got to do the scenes well. And that's, David had a real good immediate sense of that, and I enjoyed that. And he did something that I've seen no other writer in television ever do. He wrote a scene one day, and he brought us in, me and Bruce Greenwood and Rebecca De Mornay, and I think it might have been Brian Van Holt, and we're in the scene, and we're rehearsing this thing for over an hour. Okay, already that's breaking the Cardinal Law of television. You spend that much time rehearsing, you got to get to shooting. We rehearsed for about an hour, and David is sitting there watching the whole rehearsal. And he says, and this is where you separate the men from the boys in Hollywood kids. David says, boy, that scene sucks. I wrote you guys a bad scene. Yeah, he said that. I wrote a bad scene. You won't ever hear anybody else say that. Certainly on the day when we're supposed to be filming it. They'll all say, no, this is the scene, this is how it is, you have to do it. David's like, oh God, that sucks. Man, that's not good. I need to fix that. You guys just sit down. Then we did another thing that you will never hear of in Hollywood. We all just sat on our ass for about an hour. Waited for the man to write. Goes in the trailer, comes out. The next scene he hands us is golden. It's great. It's got beats, moments, builds for everybody. I don't know how he does it that fast, but he does it. But he has the honesty to look at it and say, no, this isn't working. And for that and that alone, brother's got me on speed dial. He doesn't call me anytime. So here's the date.
Hi, I'm Kathleen, and I just wanted to ask you about your experience. You mentioned that you don't get to do enough comedy. I thought you were utterly hilarious in the Vampire Slayer.
Yeah.
The whole thing. Every time you're on screen, you can't do anything else.
Which one was that?
Buffy?
Oh, the Buff.
Yeah.
He also said that that is not his favorite version of the show. But I wonder if you could talk a little bit about working on the movie.
Well, I can see why he would say that. Certainly, it's very different, obviously, than the vision that he had, and that's illustrated in the difference between the two things. The people that were running the studio at the time, I mean, to name their names, I will. They were stupid. Stupid. Joe Roth, Roger Burnell. They had Joss Whedon sitting there, right there, and they left him on the bench. You know, there's only so much I can do, okay? I mean, I'm saying. And they're like, what? I'm like, yeah, it's the thing. I'm like, yeah, that kid over there. And they're like, no, he's just the writer. They're kicking themselves in the ass now. They are, but not as hard as I'm kicking them. But again, with the comedy, I like to try it. That script made me laugh on every single page. I've always said that. It was just funny. Josh wrote a lot of funny stuff. Some of the stuff that we were able to improv on the day was pretty funny. You know, when you got Paul Rubens, and it's funny because people don't think of Hilary Swank in this regard, but Hilary is a great improvisational comedian as well. And to sit there and see all those guys digging it out and finding these moments that weren't scripted, that's also fun, and that's also part of the work, and that was really great. We had a really good time with that movie. It was just hard because I was shooting 90210 during the days and Buffy all during the night, and I don't know if you guys know it, but vampires are pretty popular right now. There's a lot of vampire stuff going on, and when you're making a vampire movie, you become one because you shoot every night, all night, and the sun starts coming up after a while. You're like, you got to get to bed because the sun's coming up. You're going to sleep 2 hours, and they're going to wake you up and take you to some other. For me, it was like I'm going to sleep 2 hours, and then they're going to put me in a Dylan McKay suit, and then I got to thing. So that movie was hard for me in that regard, but I had so much fun doing it and trying to be funny and trying to have fun. David Arquette's a good friend of mine, and we were getting to work together. He's crazy funny. So it was easy. That part of it was. And comedy seems easy. When you do these, but people say, oh, dying's easy, comedy's hard. When you do dramatic stuff, you get worn out all day just being this dramatic kind of place. And I've always thought it's probably pretty fun to go to work and see how hard you can make other people laugh. When that's your actual mandate, that's not a bad job to have. So if any of you out there writing comedies, you send them to me.
Thank you. Hi, sorry I lost my voice.
Guys, have got my voice in their pocket?
We had a panel at a convention in Toronto, and we were talking about what would happen if there were no guns. It was a Jeremiah panel, and one of the kids and the teenagers was like, "Oh, that wouldn't happen because none of these teenagers run enough." He honestly thought that the world would come to an end. How do you feel about that? And how did you articulate that hope that made it so that we would believe that they could carry on?
Yeah. Well, here's the thing about kids today, from what my limited experience with teenagers and all that stuff. We clearly Thank you, honey. That's a comedic baby. That's cool. Here's the thing about kids today and fixing those kind of problems. I think, this is, again, it's just my opinion. These guys have grown up with the buttons, man. They push the buttons. I grew up with hand tools, and I know how to work them. I know how to make stuff. I know how to break stuff. And kids today, sort of, because of the technology and things like that, I feel that they're a step removed from actually being hands-on fixing their problems. Now, if the world all went to shit like it did in Jeremiah, you wouldn't have no choice. You just have to do it. I worry about city kids, kids who live in urban, populous places, because in the absence of fixing and making and breaking your own stuff, I don't know what you do. I don't know what kind of skills they're acquiring that would allow them to survive and succeed. On the nut and bolt level, the good trade we've made though is we've got a lot of open-minded kids today who are going to know about teamwork, and they're not going to be racist, and they're not going to be homophobic, and they're not going to, we really have. I think for what we've neglected to teach them with the hammer and nails, we've really built some hearts and minds out there in the last generation or so, 2 generations maybe, and I think that's good, because that's as much of a vital component of people surviving as anything else. And that was one of the ongoing dialogues I would have with the producer of Jeremiah, was that the show needs to be about the collective consciousness, and I believe that collectively we would all want to do the right thing, not the wrong thing. There's always a few bad apples, right? But when we were, on Jeremiah, they kept kind of wanting to create these villainous bad guy types, and that there were all these marauding gangs of guys out there doing bad stuff. And I certainly think that would be an element of what that world would be like. I just didn't want to dwell on that all the time. I wanted to concentrate on those positive things where you start to see the value of someone in a completely different way. When you take away their job title or whatever, so it's you're an accountant, big deal. When the world goes to shit, it doesn't mean anything. What can you do? That was always much more interesting to me, was getting to see the relationship between people when they would start to see each other for something other than face value, or the value that society had assigned to them, because they either looked a certain way, or they dressed a certain way, or they felt a certain way. With a big cataclysmic event like that, it gives you a chance